Well, I think that's a blind alley, to be truthful. Obviously, lower dose would be better, but the liver issues are mainly related to elevations of liver function tests. And this is in generally children who are on polypharmacy with a number of drugs, particularly valproic acid, which is well known for being a bad actor in terms of LFT elevation. So my strong suspicion is that's related to polypharmacy, multiple drugs, rather than a specific effect of cannabidiol.
The risks, contraindications, and everything are very different circumstance to circumstance, depending on what a patient is taking. And,
Sure.
I would assume not just the other medicines they're taking, but even possibly their diet, because I know there are different dietary elements that can influence.
Yeah, I would just add the point that I've seen a lot of people conflate, even in presentations at conferences, conflate the side effect profile of pure CBD at high dosage to CBD in general, and that's not a fair comparison. I would say that cannabidiol, despite its many complex mechanisms of action, is an extremely safe drug with very few adverse events. Well, yeah, let's use an example, and I want to go back to the hepatic damage from CBD issue. There was an article that came out recently. It was a rodent study. The doses of cannabidiol that they were using purportedly producing liver damage would be impossible to attain in a human. And somehow this travesty passed peer review and was widely reported by the media. It has no correspondence to reality. I just wish that it had been sent to me, and I would have done my best to ensure that it didn't deserve publication. And this kind of thing, unfortunately, this kind of material is often produced with taxpayer money. And it's more than intellectually dishonest. It's downright dangerous and unethical. No, it's a broadening concept. I asked my friend and colleague Vincenzo Di Marzo whether he now would consider the serotonin 1A receptor part of the endocannabinoid system. And he didn't hesitate. He said yes. How this comes into play is cannabidiol was shown by my team at the University of Montana back in 2005. Cannabidiol is a serotonin 1A agonist. And we're finding that mechanism explains a lot of activity of cannabidiol, as well as its effect on nausea, prevention of brain damage from ammonia levels in hepatic failure, and a lot of other mechanisms. Another example would be cannabidiol is also an agonist, a stimulant on the TRPV1 receptor, the same place where capsaicin works. And again, most experts consider that part of the broad concept of the endocannabinoid system. So what's amazing to me at this point is, for a system that's so fundamental to how our bodies work, this is not, in general, taught in medical school. Somebody can go through medical school and learn nothing about cannabis, or except perhaps its alleged addiction potential. But unfortunately, it's highly likely they won't learn anything about the endocannabinoid system, despite the fact that CB1 is the most abundant G protein coupled receptor in the brain, exceeding the number of all the neurotransmitter receptors put together. So obviously it's really fundamental to how humans work. Well, the main problem, again, is ignorance, just lack of awareness. And this is across the board. It really, man on the street probably doesn't know anything about it. But again, his physician won't likely either. So big part of my mission over the 23 years I've been doing this work has been education. But I think the message I'd like to impart is this is an important aspect of how we work. what can we do, even apart from drugs, to improve our endocannabinoid tone? And there's actually a lot. The paramount lifestyle approaches that would affect the system would be, first, aerobic exercise. We've got good data, especially from animals and limited in humans, that show that you improve your endocannabinoid tone and overall well-being through aerobic activity. Humans weren't designed to be sedentary, as is prevalent in modern society. And the other one, which seems to be taking on more and more importance, is the microbiome, the bacterial content of the gut. A lot of the ills of modern society are nutritional in origin. We're seeing a huge increase in things such as the metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes associated with obesity. Again, this is not normal in human populations. In contrast, we're seeing a situation in which the American diet in particular is pro-inflammatory, as well as having an improper balance of nutrients, generally too much. But a lot of this can be counteracted by having a better bacterial balance in the gut, and that can be attained through eating more vegetables, more fiber, and particularly use of probiotics and prebiotics. And this can make a tremendous difference in health and regulating the endocannabinoid system. Yeah, it's a developing area. There was a very interesting study that was done in Canada, Clooney et al., that showed that THC produces a better balance in the microbiome. We don't see development of obesity in animals that are administered THC. Rather, they remain lean even in the face of a high-fat diet and a genetic predisposition to that kind of problem. So it is a real developing area. I see that as really key and key lifestyle approach. Some people can use this kind of dietary approach and hopefully not even need cannabis quite so much. Trying to sort out whether people should have single compounds, like single cannabinoids, versus whole plant extracts, and I'm clearly in the latter camp. For the synergy, the boosting effect that these provide over and above the kinds of effects that we can get with single compounds. Well, we can illustrate this by going back a little bit historically. In 1985, synthetic THC as Marinol was approved by the FDA. The thought among certain people at the time was this would obviate the need for cannabis treatment for medical conditions. Instead, what we got was a drug that is very poorly tolerated and gained no traction in the marketplace. THC by itself is a very disorienting drug. People tend to be dysphoric, unhappy, rather than euphoric. Even people who are accustomed to cannabis find THC in pure form a very difficult drug to tolerate, and very few people remain on it for any length of time. And when people have had the opportunity to compare, almost invariably they prefer herbal forms of cannabis. Beyond that, we have now a lot of evidence, both laboratory and clinical, that much better results accrue when we're dealing with complex mixtures from cannabis extracts as opposed to pure compounds. A recent illustration was an article from Spain, Blasco Benitez et al., in which they were looking at effects on cancer, both in cell culture and in animals, comparing pure THC, which worked to some extent, in treating the cancers. But in comparison to a cannabis extract, there was much, much greater activity with very salient, statistically significant differences.
If you like this video, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get notified of more videos, and go ahead and check out another video while you're at it.